Will everyone please put your hands together in Gassho and recite the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Kenzo, you're up there. How's the weather outside right now?
Smaller flakes, but less.
Smaller flakes, okay. But I thoroughly applaud each and every one of you for coming to service today. And only if Jodo Shinshu were a religion where the amount of times you came to temple got you closer to the Pure Land, I would give you 2 steps. But that's actually not the type of Buddhism that we are a part of. So you all certainly have earned brownie points with me, but that doesn't mean much, unfortunately. But I thoroughly congratulate all of you for attending service today. But of course, if people don't feel comfortable and they need to stay home because they don't feel comfortable driving on the roads, that's totally fine. And thank goodness we have technology to help stream the service to those folks watching from the comforts of their own home. And this is one of the reasons why it's wonderful to live in the modern age. Now, continuing on my topic for this year's Dharma School Dharma Talks, we are going over the 6 paramitas, and we are currently on the 3rd one. So the first one, we talked about dana, which means, Lotus class, which means what? Very good, selfless giving. It means dana is the Buddhist act of giving without expecting anything in return, okay? Then the second one is sila, which means, Dharma School students, it begins with an E. Ethics. Basically doing your best to trying not to cause harm to others. Okay, so sila is ethics or morality. Okay, the third one is shanti, and this one is easy. What does that mean? Patience or forbearance or tolerance, right? So we are currently on the paramita of shanti or kshanti. And that is the paramita of patience. And as stated before in the previous weekend, this is a hard concept for me to talk about because this is the weakest of the paramitas that I probably display. I am not a patient person. Patience is definitely not one of my virtues. But today's Dharma talk, I'd like to talk about the concept of patience in that it is not always good to run towards the finish line. What do I mean by that? Or to race towards the finish line? Of course, all of us in our daily lives, we walk here and there, we go from point A to point B, we have all of our tasks, ahead of us, and we have the schedules that we have to keep. And of course, we want to get through these schedules and these routines as seamlessly and as quickly and as time efficiently as possible. And of course, when something doesn't occur that way or something goes wrong, we get upset, we get angry. That is our bonno, that is our klesha, right? Because something hindered us from going smoothly. So inevitably, it causes us to, get upset and, probably take it out on others. Actually things that we can't control, like the weather outside. We did have to have a little bit of a discussion, like, should we have service today in person? Should we hold service at the temple? And it's true, this is a fair and valid discussion because we don't know exactly how heavy the snow would be, if it would stick or not, if the roads would be safe. These are legitimate things to think about. But for those of you who are really, really hoping to come to service, right, there could be some anxiety. And these times of transition and these times in between can be the hardest part sometimes. And, for Dharma School students, when you think about your daily school life, right, you start your classes on Monday, right? I bet, and I was just as guilty of this, I bet many of you, when you get to class on Monday, you're already thinking about, I can't wait till it's Friday. That means it's the end of the weekend, and, you can go back home and you can, have the 2 days off. Although many of you do come to church on Sundays, which is wonderful. But you're always in this mindset of, I want to get to the next point as quickly as possible, right? I can't stand to wait, because, that means I have to sit through class, I don't have energy, I was up late last night, I was hanging out with my friends, all of these things. And so because of this, you want to get to the point A to point B as quickly as possible. But this isn't always good. When we rush and when we don't take our time with things, we can make really bad mistakes. Now, especially for you Dharma school students who are now drivers, for a lot of your parents, I'm certain that's a scary thought sometimes. Oh, my kid driving in the car, but especially on days like snowy days, right? We want to get to things as quickly as possible, sure. But when you read those road signs that say, slow down, save a life, they're not joking. They're not joking, right? It might seem cliche to say it, and it might even seem obvious to say things like that, to say, slow down, save a life. But for our, for our younger folks, and even for folks, who are older than Dharma school age, right? We always think, I can take it, or oh, I can get away with it, or oh, I can really speed through things, and sometimes just get to a place as quickly as possible. But it's not always safe. Rushing to the finish line doesn't always yield good results. And the same can be said with exercise. Right? Now, of course, I'm on a fitness journey. I'm certain many of you are also have your own exercise and physical routines. Am I going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger next week? Am I going to look like Dwayne Johnson next week? No. And am I going to shrink my belly like as quickly as possible? Absolutely, absolutely not. And if I do, that's actually not a good thing. That's not healthy. This is where Buddhism, I think, can really help us with any aspect of our life in terms of the concept of patience. Now, this is really, really, again, hard for me to talk about because this is really me self-admitting to myself, this is what I need to do, right? It's not really me preaching to all of you saying you should do this, right? This is me fully on admitting to you that this is a problem that I have, right? I myself, too, want to get to point A to point B as quickly as possible. I really dislike it when there is traffic on the freeway. I sometimes look at my weight on the scale and I get frustrated because I'm like, I worked out like every day of the week. What's going on here? Why am I not making the progress that I thought? And when I was in school, especially the school to become a minister, sometimes I did have those thoughts of, when do I get to put on the nice robes? When do I get to actually be the one in charge of the service? When do I get to do all these things? All of these things are things that we think about. And it's okay because these thoughts will come into your minds. I'm not saying that you have to repress these thoughts. What I am saying is that don't give into them. These thoughts will occur. These feelings will happen. These desires to just like speed ahead. There's a, I don't like to bring cartoons or especially ones that are not necessarily meant for kids, but you all have heard of the cartoon called Family Guy. There's a clip in there where Lois has superpowers in one of the episodes, and she's stuck in traffic, and then she goes, ugh, I can't, she goes, forget this. And so she uses her super strength to get out of the car, lift it up, and then smash over, the cars in front of her so she can get to the front of the line. I've had that desire to do that, especially like in Seattle traffic. For those of you who live in Seattle, I'm certain you've all felt this way when you've gone to Seattle, ugh, move it. But it's not always good to get from point A to point B. And for all of us, for the Dharma school students, this is also true when you go off to college as well. Enjoy the time that you have there. Don't always think of, you don't necessarily have to think about, okay, how am I going to make the most money when I get out of here? What's the first career that I'm going to do? What's the job that I'm going to get, what's my future? Already start saving for my retirement plan. Some people may say you should do this, but for one, am actually in the camp of, you have your youth now, you have your time now, you have you have your time in college and in high school now. Enjoy it while you can. Because guess what? Once you pass that point, you can't go back. You can't go back to elementary school. You can't go back, when you graduate from college. Maybe you can take graduate level classes and everything like that, but you can't be the age that you were when you started college. So don't rush for the finish line all the time. Take your time. This is the Buddhist concept of shanti, not just of like being patient and patiently waiting for something to cook in the oven or the microwave. This is about your lives as well. Really take your time with your lives. Now, of course, nothing is ever guaranteed. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should be rushing to the finish line of your career, of your college life, or of, even going into relationships, right? Take the time that you have. Enjoy yourselves for right here and right now. And of course, when you come to appreciate all of this, and when you come to appreciate the time that you have now, that's when you can place your hands together as well and say, Namo Amida Butsu. Because that type of wisdom activity comes from the working of Amida Buddha's great compassion. So Dharma School students, thank you so much for taking the time and of course, braving the storms for coming to temple today. I certainly look forward to hopefully a sunnier next Sunday, but I'm not there yet, and I'm actually going to enjoy the snowy weather for what it is. So thank you very much, and please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, nas. Will you all please join me in Gassho as I read the words of our founder, Master Shinran Shonin. Obstructions of karmic evil turn into virtues. It is like the relation of ice and water. The more the ice, the more the water. The more the obstructions, the more the virtues. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namandats, namandats. Good morning, everyone. So for our adult Dharma talk, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Buddhist ideology of shanti, or patience. And one of the things that I really enjoy about Jodo Shinshu writing, especially in terms of Master Shinran's writings, was his wasan on Master Tanluan, who is depicted in the scroll that is to your most left there. He's right there in the center, Master Tanluan of China. And Master Tanluan is the one who wrote about our obstructions and our quote-unquote evils, right? And I say that with quotations because Buddhist evil is not the same as Christian evil, okay? But but the more the obstructions and the afflictions that we have, right, it's like ice. But then when we become enlightened and we become fully awakened beings, it melts into water, right? And I don't know about you, right? But I remember back in elementary school, we did an experiment and we asked ourselves, like, which makes the ice cube melt faster, right? If you put an ice block and you just let it sit out in the open, or what if you put it into water, right? Which will melt faster? So some of us, of course, thought, if you leave it out, it's hotter or it's warmer, right? So the ice will melt quicker. But actually, we found that if you put it in water, it melts a lot quicker. But again, one of the things that I think that makes Jodo Shinshu so hard is that there is no clear indication of when our ice does melt into water. Okay. Again, people think of Buddhism a lot of times in this very linear way. Okay, I join a Buddhist temple, like a Zen temple, and I go and I do a bunch of zazen sitting meditation. And then when I get out, I will become a more well-balanced and healthy and more mindful and everything like that. But one of the things that many of my Soto Zen teacher friends tell me is that what people misunderstand is that when they go and they do that sitting, there's no real distraction. So therefore, they actually become more aware of the things about themselves that they don't like, quicker than they would if they were out in the regular world doing the chores or conversing with people. And they have to, in a sense, force themselves to look at themselves in a mirror, kind of a mirror of truth. And so that begs the question, right? When you actually transition from ice to water, With Jodo Shinshu, we operate on things a little bit differently. In Jodo Shinshu, we rely fully on Amida Buddha's other power, or Hongan Riki, or vow power. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that we can just do whatever we want and we can, indulge in all of our, desires and our wants. But what this means is that the working of dharmic activity is coming for us, is coming to us, towards us. And therefore, that is the heat, that is the sunlight that melts the ice for us. But the hard part is that because of our egocentric selves and our bombu selves, the ice comes back again, right? See, that's kind of the hard part, right? When you look at the cycle of the seasons, right? Once winter is done, does it stop forever? No. Winter comes back and things freeze again, things get cold again, but then spring comes and it melts the snow, and then we have the blazing hot summer, and then we go into fall where things start to get chillier, and then we're back to winter again. And yet at the same time, right, the cycle keeps spinning and the world keeps going. And the same is true with us as people, our travelers of the Nembutsu. We are definitely filled with what we call bono, or kleshas, or afflictions. Our self-centered desires, our selfish egos, the things that we want that we can't have, differing opinions from other people, things that we in our heads know to be right, but others say are completely wrong. All of this conflict, all of these afflictions are the things that represent the ice. But then when we say Namo Amida Butsu, when we come to the temple, or when we actually engage in dharmic activity, that is like the heat that melts the ice into water. Now, again, this doesn't mean that the ice melts and the ice will never come back. We will inevitably have these feelings again of frustration, anger, greed, and ignorance, not being able to accept things the way that they are. And yet at the same time, because of this, Amida Buddha's working still works purely for our benefit. So the wonderful thing about Jodo Shinshu as well is this concept of the working of other power, right? What it means is that we don't have to do these hard Buddhistic practices to free us of these afflictions by ourselves. So that's another aspect of Jodo Shinshu that I love, is that it ultimately tells us you're not alone. You don't have to do this alone. And in fact, if it's not just only Amida Buddha, but all the other fellow Nembutsu travelers who come here and support one another as well. And not just Nembutsu travelers, a perfect stranger, right? A person who, when you see, sometimes when you're driving and you see, you pass a scene where you see like there's a car that, kind of broke down, and you see a nice person who, stops and says, oh, do you need help, right? That kind of dharmic activity. This is the kind of heat that melts the water. So what I love about Jodo Shinshu is that even, when we have these moments of not being so nice, not being so well-liked, or not being so good to other people in a sense, this doesn't mean that lasts forever, or that defines who you are. It means that, you are human and you are born with afflictions, yes, but at the same time, you also allow the help of others, such as Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, help to warm your life, help to melt that ice. And in that regard, we can go ahead and continue living this life. So what is another example of this type of melting? What about when one apologizes or says, I'm sorry? We don't hear that word very much anymore, sadly. We don't hear, I was wrong, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. What we hear are justifications, or saying, no, you were in the wrong, or blaming the other person and saying that, you were the wrong one, I was the right one. And it's sad because I feel like sometimes our general society doesn't look too kindly upon people who make a mistake. Now, of course, it depends on the mistake that is made, but if a person is genuinely sorry and is genuinely feels like they want to change or want to actually do better, right? We still demonize them and say, well, you still made the mistake and you're a horrible person for that, right? But on the other hand, you have folks who aren't sorry, who don't apologize, and basically stick within their minds and say, no, I was right the whole time. I'm never wrong. Everyone else is wrong but me, and therefore I don't have to change. I don't have to do any of that hard work. When we allow ourselves to really look deep within ourselves, Jodo Shinchu says that we can see two aspects of ourselves. One is that we are definitely human and not perfect, but because of that fact, the Buddha Dharma was made for us, to help us, to guide us, to warm our ice into water. And so we can take great rejoicing in that. Of course, this doesn't mean that, we shouldn't apologize. If we were wrong or if we're in the wrong, we should say, I'm sorry. And mean it. If we were right and a person apologizes to us and says, and says, I was wrong and I need to change and I will do better next time, it's up to us too to say, I forgive you and, let's move forward and I will let this go as well. Forgiveness is a hard thing, but it's a virtuous thing as well. I love Jodo Shinchu's philosophy on the human condition. It is very honest when you think about it. It forces us to be honest about ourselves. But at the same time, because of that honesty, we place our hands together and say, Namo Amida Butsu, for we know that we are not alone. We are not alone in this journey of life. We are with Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion constantly. That working of the Dharma will never stop. Even when we make mistakes, because we make mistakes, when we get angry, the warmth of the Dharma is still there to help calm us. This is why I love Jodo Shinchu so much, personally for myself. And in times of great upset and sadness, I look towards the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha for guidance. I thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules once again and braving the storm. But in this heartfelt message, I am truly grateful for every single one of you who comes and continues to share in the Dharma with me. Please join me in Gassho. Obstructions of karmic evil turn into virtues. It is like the relation of ice and water. The more the ice, the more the water. The more the obstructions, the more the virtues. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandaps, namandaps.